Space Center. And this isn't an old static museum tour. This is an active spaceport. Sometimes things pop up along the way while we're on tour and we have to make certain detours. We never know what we may hit. Right now they're telling us everything is clear, so hopefully it'll stay that way. Artemis mission in 1965, we had 10 manned launches of that, followed up by the Apollo program, which put men inside of that building. And this past year, that's where we assembled the SLS rocket we launched 2 weeks ago, sending Orion back up there. His office is inside that building as well, and many other engineers. Very smart people work in that building. I don't work in that building. Pretty much, you can just get an idea of how vast that space is inside.
Sorry, do you want to work in this building?
Once we launch the rockets here, then we turn control over to Houston and mission control in Houston. We're going to make a left-hand turn, and we're going to circle all the way to number 1. Also Apollo 11, when we put men on the moon, use firing room number 1 as well. The top of the platform to do any maintenance they need to do. Back in the space shuttle days, we had that big orange tank on either side of it. We had the white solid rocket boosters. Those were made out. Those are big airplane hangars for the space shuttle. When the space shuttle would come back here to Kennedy Space Center, we'd bring them in those buildings right there, and we would get them ready for the next launch. Thousands of them in here. And they're walking along the crawlaway sometimes, so the workers will pick them up and move them off to the side. However, if the tortoises are walking the same way the rocket's going, they just leave them alone because they travel faster than the rocket does. We're coming up to our first stop. This is called the Launch Complex 39 Gantry. It's a viewing area. But before we get there, as you look out to your left, you'll see crawler transporter number 2. This is the vehicle that took the rocket down to the launch pad. It weighs 6.6 million pounds. It was manufactured in Marion, Ohio in 1965. It still has less than 3,000 miles on it. You'll see there are 2 tracks on each corner. Each one of those treads weighs 1 ton. There's a kitchen inside, also a restroom. You see in the back where it says CT2, where those... further east of that, of the moon. They tested all the equipment, then they came back up and docked, got the Apollo capsule, and that cleared the way for the moon landing of Apollo 11. There's a story going around, we can't verify it, but it's a great story anyway, that NASA wasn't so sure the Apollo 10 astronauts, once they got... Stage is the big long stage. The second stage is a little bit shorter.
Are you?
I wish I could tell you what is in those, but I really have no idea. The big SpaceX water tank that you see, that holds 400. So right on that black tower, all 12 men that walked on the moon launched right from that spot, right there where that tower is. 82 space shuttles, SpaceX's 5 missions up to the International Space Station, right there, right in front of us. They would have to abort Apollo 12. Well, they had no idea what was going on. They're ready to abort the mission. But one guy in mission control, his name was John Aaron. He said, I think I know what to do. He remembered a scenario from the previous year. And they run thousands of scenarios, but he remembered this one. And he said, tell them to try SCE to auxiliary. So SCE to aux. So they radio up to Apollo 12. Apollo 12, try SCE to aux. The Apollo 12 astronauts responded, what the heck is that? Alan Bean, sitting on the right-hand side of the capsule, he says, I know where that is. He reached up, it was back over his right shoulder. He reached up through SCE to aux. Everything came back on, and Apollo 12 made a successful mission to the moon. If it was not for that one man, John Aaron, Apollo 12 would have been aborted. And that might have been the end of the Apollo missions, because we know Apollo 13 didn't make it. So if we had one success and then two failures, would that have been the end? Would they have pulled funding? We'll never have to know because of one man, John Aaron. And everyone at NASA, all the engineers, everyone, they know it takes such a big team to get to the moon. And that's why Apollo 11, if you looked at their mission patch, they didn't have their names on. 1975, the Apollo-Soyuz test mission. That's when we launched an Apollo spacecraft. We orbited and docked with the Russians. We reached out and we shook hands with them in space, symbolizing the end of the space program. Those lightning towers, 600 feet tall. There's a picture this past summer of the two white tanks on the right. Those are for liquid hydrogen. The one closest to the pad, that is the largest liquid hydrogen tank in the world. Human beings back on the moon for the first time since 1972. In that group, the first person of color and also the first woman on the moon. Once we get that done, those first couple of missions, and we get everything checked out, we have a slogan for Artemis. It's called We Are Going. And the question is, where are we going? We're going to Mars. Artemis 1 was step 1 in going to Mars. We are going to start by building something called a gateway. That is a small space station, about 1/3 the size of the International Space Station, but the gateway will be orbiting the moon. Then when we launch Orion, Orion will dock with the gateway and take a shuttle vehicle back and forth to the surface of the moon. And what they're going to be doing when they go back and forth is building a permanent base on the moon. We are going to have a permanent moon base, and during that time when we have that, we're going to be doing experiments. Point on, we change it. They put railings around the top of the LCC right there, and that is now where the friends and families of astronauts watch all the launches from. Up here at the VAB, a couple of cool things. The launch abort system from the Orion spacecraft is here. You'll be able to take a look at it. Also, the crew access zone from 39A for the space shuttle. 82 space shuttle crew.
Through the emergency exit. Wow.
So they are reverse?
Yeah, they're reversed. This yellow means emergency. બધું થાય છે ઓક્સિજન આવે પાણી આપે ખાવાનું આપે ઠીક
Technology from the visors of the men on the moon. Air Jordan type of sneakers, that technology, the boots of the...
Did you enjoy? Arya? Did you enjoy?